Hello and welcome to the Philippines. This video is about how to survive the Philippines, how to survive in the Philippines. And the reason I chose this topic, I've been approached a couple times in the last week asking me, don't you ever get bored, or what do you do when you get bored here in the Philippines? And I'm going to go over a number of issues. I've heard it said that if you can survive 5 years in the Philippines, you can probably survive long term. And I've been here 3 trips here. I've been here 7 years, and my attitude, my perspective has changed over that time. There are times when I get bored, and the best thing to do, the best advice I give to people is take a trip someplace. Go to another island. Go to another part of the island you're on. Do something different. And because of circumstances, oftentimes, even if I might get a little bored, I shouldn't get bored with all the things I have going on, but I will admit that I do at times. I get bored or frustrated or uh, something you just feel you don't feel at the top of your game, so to speak. You have to travel. You need time, you need money, and energy, motivation, and sometimes one or more of those items are lacking. So you don't. Everyone can't just pick up and go. Circumstances. You got a wife, a family, girlfriend, whatever that you've made, or other commitments that you've made to other people that don't make it less easy just to get up and take a trip. I had another expat suggest a video about. Wonder how many foreigners wash out. That was the term, wash out. Don't make it in the Philippines, and I'm not sure if I like that term, but it's a legitimate term. I know at least four friends who technically they're not expats. They will come here for 2 months, 3 months, 4 months, 5, 6 months, and then they go back to their other country, or they go to Thailand. One of my friends, he goes from the U.S. to Thailand for a couple months, to Philippines for a couple months, back to Texas for a couple months, and that's a good routine for him. Um, I don't like flying. I like to travel, but I don't like flying long distances that much. So, boy, I'd have to think long and hard before I do something like that. But I've met many others over the years who do indeed. They're part time, so technically they are not expats. They are short-term visitors, I guess. I think a technical term for an expat was my understanding, and I think it's a former British term, British military term. British military who were stationed overseas for a period of time, a year or longer, came up with the term expats. And now it refers to those people living outside of their country, in a foreign country, of course, for a year or more, I think, something like that. No real tight definition. I think attitude is the number one key to surviving and thriving, as another YouTuber uses the term thrive, not just to survive, but you want to do much more than survive. And your attitude, I came here with a pretty open mind and willing to accept and adapt to a certain point in time, but at the same time, I wanted to be in a place where I could get the types of foods that I wanted, um, the infrastructure that I would want and require, like uh, internet access. And I've lived in 6 different condominiums in 7 years, and I've had varying degrees of internet reliability and speed. Now, part of that is because when I moved into my first place, the internet was there at a certain speed, and it wasn't up to me to, because it wasn't in my name, I had no authority to buy a higher speed product, but it was a landline, and not fiber optic. So in these last 7 years, many more buildings have gotten fiber optic, but still a lot of them don't. Um, I had a guy contact me, in fact, for a couple of months, saying I'm gonna come to the Philippines when I get things taken care of, other personal deals taken care of, and going through a divorce, I think, and some other things. And the more we chatted every few days on emails, the last time he was looking for some assurance from me that, because he does a lot of work online, trading and such, and he wanted me to assure him that he was going to be able to get reliable internet. And I believe it was maybe not even in Cebu City, but maybe over in another city. And I said, you need to, when you determine what building you're going to move into and rent from, and what landlord you're going to rent from, she may have already signed up, have a contract at a certain speed, certain rate, maybe fiber, maybe landline. Um, you know, there's no way I can assure you of the reliability and the speed of your connection uh, in a building, because some buildings, one carrier, one company they're the only company in the building that offers the internet. And so I recommend everybody, and I do. I have data on my phone that I can use if my fiber optic system goes off. And sometimes it's actually faster than the fiber optic system. And it's a case where the landlady signed up for a certain speed, and it includes a few channels, few cable channels, and she doesn't really want to increase that. Now my download speed is fine, but my upload speed with Sky Cable, I think it comes in right at 5 megabytes per second, which is really quite slow when I'm uploading these videos. Anyway, this guy got really upset with me because I wouldn't assure him that he could get the service and reliability. And so I suggested, I suggest you stay where you're at. You're probably not going to like the Philippines, because there are no guarantees here, especially here going into 10 months after a typhoon, and we're still recovering in a sense. They can shut the internet down to do some maintenance work, and not just because of the typhoon, but that's what they do. They are they it's a developing country still, so things happen, oftentimes with no warning. You don't have water for part of a day or a couple days. You don't have electric. You get brownouts. You don't have internet unexpectedly. I came here understanding that if I didn't like the Philippines, I could go to Thailand. Originally, I'd planned on going to Thailand, but the more I researched, and the fellow I met the other day, British guy, he said too, the language issue was a problem. He'd been to Thailand, and he found the English there to be difficult to understand, and then a lot of people where he was apparently had more difficulty with the English. But there's Vietnam, Cambodia, there's many other countries, Malaysia, Indonesia, whatever. I did a video a couple months ago. I think it's titled "Things You Should Know Coming to the Philippines," something like that. I'll put a link to that video at the end of this video, and I don't want to cover a lot of the same information here. This is more about the survive and thrive mode. Really enjoying. Hopefully, you're not moving away from problems. Hopefully, you're moving to a great experience, whether it's a couple months, short term, or long term. By the way, this video is of a sunrise about a week or so ago, I think. And I'll probably put this video up all by itself as well, and leave the sounds in there. So I did this many months ago. Some people enjoyed it. And the sounds as the city wakes up, basically, sounds and sights. But culture shock, that encompasses a whole lot of things, and I will include a whole lot of things in this discussion about culture shock. And saw a video the other day by somebody who went back to the USA and called reverse culture shock, going back and after a number of years, and the reverse culture shock going back to your homeland, so to speak. But anyway, you've got it's a different culture, it's a different people, and they think differently to some degree. The food is different, the money is different, the language, even the English language here is different, different pronunciations. And a friend of mine, communication, very important. Friend of mine who has had a girlfriend, a couple friends in fact, who've had girlfriends for a number of years, have discussed this with me. How much of your actual conversation with your mate do you think they understand? And I said, I don't know, maybe half, because I've learned if I use an uncommon word, I will ask my girlfriend, do you know what this word means? And yes or no. And then if she doesn't, which often is the case, but she won't say, I don't understand. Can you explain a different way? So I've learned to ask her, do you understand this word I'm using? And he said that they said that the first months or year or more, he thought that maybe 80%, maybe they understood 80% both directions, communicating. But he said, after time, you learn that maybe that's closer to 50%. And there are people that have a much larger English vocabulary than other people, obviously, here and anywhere in the world. But that can be an issue, communication, depending on how important that is to you. I think the one guy, he was going to even send his girlfriend to some English classes, even though I thought she spoke quite well. But when you live with someone, you find out over time. I dated a Thai Chinese girl for 1 year in Los Angeles many years ago, and I found that her and her friends, if they didn't understand me, they'd say, "Yeah, right. Yeah, right." And I learned that term meant they didn't understand what I was talking about, or they didn't understand the words that I was using. The other culture shock is because you're just one of many nationalities visiting the Philippines, and you're surrounded by not just the Philippine culture, but by many other cultures. Even if you go to a store like S&R or Landers, which are kind of patterned after the Costco membership stores in the U.S. and many other parts of the world. You go in there, a lot of the brands are different. There are a lot of Koreans, Japanese, Chinese. You'll see writing on packages, and I like to read ingredients and stuff, and it's like it's very, because they're trying to fit many different languages on that package. The writing is very small. You really need to bring a magnifying glass with you if that's important to you. But a lot of the food, I don't even know what it is. I would have no idea how to prepare it. My girlfriend will buy things sometimes. I take her shopping. She will buy certain types of food, and I said, "Why are you buying that?" I've never tried it before. I want to experiment. I want to find out what it is. And so I usually let her do that. But occasionally I say, no, you aren't going to buy that. I don't want that, But I do allow her to buy the dried fish. The dried fish is a something, boy, most Filipinos love it. It smells terrible when they cook it, but they they say, oh, but it tastes very good. Do you want some? I can't get past the smell. I'm sorry. Kind of like lutefisk. I've got Norwegian mother and German father, and at Christmas time, lutefisk. The Swedes and Norwegians love that. It's a white fish, sometimes referred to as, if I remember right, poor man's lobster, maybe. But if you boil it, it smells really bad. If you bake it, it doesn't smell quite as bad, but it's got kind of a strange texture to it. Can you survive the climate, the weather, the risks here? And there are actually four climate weather type systems here in the Philippines, according to the experts. But basically, it's warm, hot, uh, and humid most of the year. Most places, you go up in elevation to cool off, and there are some developments up higher in the foothills and mountains, various places. Um, I've lived in the upper Midwest, Minnesota, and the USA. Very cold winters that I never got used to the cold. But I remember summers very, very hot and humid. We had a couple of very hot years where we would get a number of days, upper 90, mid 90s, even sometimes over 100 degrees Fahrenheit. Um, and I would be out there working on the farm in that kind of stuff, and I just did it. There are many parts of the southeast USA in particular that are more hot and more humid, but they do get cooler temperatures in the wintertime. So that is a change. Just depends upon, every different people adjust to the weather and climate differently. It was a drought when I came here, but I was out walking a lot, and there were days when it was horrendously hot and uncomfortable. And the good thing is you can go inside and be in air conditioning. Now, some areas, some cities are more prone to blackouts, brownouts, what they call here, where the electric goes off for many hours or a day or two at a time. And my understanding is that Dumaguete still has an issue with that. They have more brownouts than the average larger city. Not sure if that's still the case or not. And the temperature does not vary much over the course of a year either. Generally, the low temperatures um, during the evening, early morning, I guess you would say, gets down into the mid 70s Fahrenheit, which would be what, 25, 26 degrees centigrade. And you get in our cooler season, you get into the mid 80s generally during the day. Humidity anywhere from 50 to 80% most of the time, sometimes goes higher than that. And during the hotter season, you'll get into the mid 90s. Very rare that it goes over 100 degrees or 30, 33 degrees, something like that, Celsius. There are many nights here where I can go out on my balcony and sit, and maybe it's 82, 83 degrees, but there's a little bit of a breeze, and it's quite comfortable actually. So that's Celsius. What would that be? 27, 28 degrees Celsius, something like that. And now on my balcony, I get shade about noon. I get shade on my balcony. So even during the day, I can go out there and sit. It's a little warmer. There are occasional days. In the last couple of weeks, in fact, there are a number of days where I've opened up my windows and I've had a nice breeze come through, and checked the temperature, and it was about between 80, it moved between 82, 83, 84 degrees. But the breeze, the wind chill factor, I was quite comfortable with that. So I've got a couple friends that rarely use air conditioning. They use a fan instead most of the time, but I often use air con, but I keep it usually set about 27, 28 degrees Celsius, which is about 82 degrees Fahrenheit, and I'm usually pretty comfortable there. I've got a little bit of air blowing from the air conditioner, and just enough to keep me comfortable. And as far as average temperatures, like, if you've been to Bangkok, average temperatures in Bangkok, Thailand, run a few degrees warmer than the average temperatures here in Cebu City, the Philippines, the second largest city in the Philippines. Now, the temperatures in Manila usually, but not always, are just a little bit warmer than they are in Cebu City as well. And so each of your cities that you might choose to live in, each have advantages, disadvantages. One's a little bit, even weather-wise. Manila is going to get more effects from the whole Luzon area is going to get more effect from typhoons, generally run up that way. But we had a super typhoon come through here back in December of 2021. Did major damage all the way across the Visayas, the eastern, central, and western Visayas, and still a lot of places still recovering from that. So that is an effect that you're going to have to deal with. The typhoons, very rare that you see a tornado. In fact, I occasionally see water spouts on the social media things. People will put up pictures of water spouts, and then of course I think a water spout, if it comes on land, then it's categorized as a tornado, basically. Not very common. We do have some active volcanoes here, a couple. Recently they've upgraded the risk level from nothing to 0, and then from 0 to 1. I think 1 is even at 2. The Taal volcano, just south of Manila, blew a couple years ago and spread ash even up into the Manila area. The Bulasan volcano has been having some earthquakes and maybe spit out a little bit. I think Canleon volcano had some earthquakes. I don't know if it had a little bit of smoke coming out recently or not. I don't remember. The Mayon, let's see, don't remember all the names here, but we have some active volcanoes. Pinatubo is considered dormant, I think, presently, but it had, here in the last year, it had a number of earthquakes up in that area. They're not expecting another huge eruption, but you never know. Earthquakes, I've felt 2 real small ones and 1 pretty small, but I definitely felt it. I was standing up, and it's like I thought I was dizzy at first. And some of you think I'm dizzy anyway, but it was an interesting experience. It was bigger than the very small ones I felt in California, and I think I felt 3 or 4 in California, which regularly has earthquakes. So you can reduce your risk by where you live. If you live in the paths that typhoons often take, they often come in off the Pacific, through the Philippine Sea. The warm Philippine Sea, provides the energy for these storms to turn into typhoons, hurricanes, what you call in the West, and they can become very big very rapidly. I've always wondered why people would want to live on the side or in the shadow of a volcano. There are certain areas that have a history of more medium-sized earthquakes. that type of thing. There are maps with fault zones, and I know they questioned some people in California years ago. I mean, their house is literally right on fault zones, and people went in and just asked them, do you know you're living right on top of a fault zone? What? People didn't, bought these, $500,000 houses, $1 million houses, and didn't do the research. Didn't know they were built right on top of a fault. Now for a little advice, and this is primarily for newcomers who haven't been here before. If you've been here before, once or a number of times, most of you know all of this already. You should know it. Is that you aren't going to change the Philippines. You might have influence over a small group of people that you're around over time, but if you're going to live someplace here, or Thailand, or wherever, across the country that you live in, where there's a different culture, and the U.S. is like that. You go to different parts of the country, and it's almost like different countries. Some of the foods are different. The English is different accents. But anyway, to understand, you're in a foreign country. You are privileged to be here. The systems here are different. There's not the urgency that you might like, the infrastructure that you might want. And you're going to have to deal with those things and accept those. And the best thing is to have alternative plans. For instance, the internet. If you're relying on the internet, like so many are, they're working as digital nomads and making money as they travel, stay in different countries. Your internet might go out, so have a second source, a phone with a lot of data on it that you can use for internet. One of those may get you through a rough spot. Don't confrontations are not a good thing here. You don't want to make enemies here, because if you make an enemy with a person, it's not just that person. You made an enemy of that family and the friends, and you may find your life to be very difficult, especially in a smaller town where everybody knows one another. Don't get in arguments if you're going to immigration to apply for various visas or renew it. I've seen foreigners in there arguing. Every time it's been a Westerner arguing, well, why isn't this done? Why do I have to do this? And these guys are dealing with people from over 100 different countries with different languages, and trying to explain to them, well, you need to go and get these pictures taken. You need to fill this form out. You need to do this. And they're dealing with all these different languages and customs from other countries, and they do a wonderful job. And you start arguing with them, and chances are you're not going to expedite the process. If you're an impatient type, I suggest you use an agency that can go in, so you don't have to deal with them, like JRC, Visa Consultancy, and Immigration Services. I've done a number of interviews with them, and many of the expats come here and use them for their. They pick up your passport and go do whatever they need to do with it, walk you through the system. If you're getting a retirement visa, marriage visa, whatever, and I'll put a link to his site in the description as well. And maybe the most important thing is to have a plan B, a plan C. If your first plan doesn't work out, have a plan and cash. Have money available, so if it doesn't work out in one part of the Philippines, you need to move to another part of the Philippines. You got money to do that. Or if you need to move to a different country because you require something, you don't like something here, have that option to move back home, move to another country. Anyway, looking forward to the comments and any advice you guys have as well. Thanks for coming along. Stay safe, stay healthy. and I'll see you next time.